Thanks so much, and welcome everyone to our Center of Excellence for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Consultations Conference, Equity from the Start. My name is Angela Castillo-Epps, and I will serve as your moderator for today. I am joined by Ann Wilson, who will serve as our technical host, so thank you, Ann. So you know the session is being recorded. Transcription is available through the Zoom platform as well. Should you have any questions, please feel free to place them in the chat. We are happy to help. We will not have time at the end of this particular session for kind of a traditional Q&A, but we will all come back into this room together after our breakouts to close out the session. So with that said, I'd like to pass it over to Annie Davis, who will be conducting a workshop today with this group on exploring equity in action. So Annie, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really pleased to see everyone here to join. And we are going to be leading our discussion called Developing Essential Activities of IECMHC, a workshop to explore equity in action. So we assume you're all here because you are fascinated to know what are those essential activities of mental health consultation. We are equally fascinated. And we're also really enthusiastic about creating a space to work through a vignette and to define some activities together. So we're going to start off with some explanation of where we are in our current research study to articulate these essential activities. And then we're going to practice putting that into action together.
Annie, before you get started, your screen is in presenter mode.
Yes. Okay, so I'm sharing the wrong thing.
Wrong screen, I think.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. This is really good to know. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. I just thought you'd want to know.
I do. Yes. Let's see. What if I share?
It's a way smaller hiccup than our poster sessions this morning.
That is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Annie.
Okay,
Excellent job.
Great.
Great.
That's great. I'm glad I didn't have like an embarrassing note on there. Like,
Don't forget to introduce yourself. Yeah. I usually do.
All right. So I will introduce myself, and just in the interest of time, we'll let you know who's on the team for this wonderful work. I'm Annie Davis. I'm on the faculty of the Center of Excellence. And my colleagues in this ambitious task of articulating the essential activities of mental health consultation include Deborah Perry, whom you just heard from, Lauren Rabinowitz, Francis Duran, Evandra Catherine, and Kayla Titus. And you'll get a chance to hear from them and be in breakout groups with them as well. So, for how we're going to spend our time today, we're going to give you a little bit of background on the consensus building study that we're currently undertaking at the Center of Excellence. Then we're going to facilitate breakout groups to really kind of work on our equity in action activities. And then if we have time, we'll do a future directions brainstorm. So we just want to quickly, as we move along, get a sense of who is here. I believe, folks are used to doing this by this point. If you wouldn't mind just telling us who you are in the chat, that would be wonderful. We're wondering, what's your role and where are you located? So my role is Center of Excellence faculty and specifically an evaluator. I'm located in Massachusetts in the Boston area. If you wouldn't mind putting your information in there, we would love to know a little bit about who's joining us. All right, thank you all for sharing. Seeing we've got some supervisors, consultants, folks from coast to coast, project launch. Thank you, everyone. It's really good to see this. I think it really helps us understand a little bit more about, since we're doing this breakout activity, how we can facilitate best. So thank you for that. All right, so in the interest of time, please do keep sharing, and we are going to keep reviewing. That's a good thing about having a big panel, is that the person speaking is not the only person who can react. But in this moment, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Frances, who's going to talk us through what we know so far about the activities of consultation.
Great. Thanks, Annie. Hi, everybody. Glad to see all the different locations that people are from. I'm from Virginia myself, but have been around a little bit, Pittsburgh and Connecticut and so on and so forth. So glad to see lots of representation. So as Annie said, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do know about the activities of consultation and sort of what really motivated us to embark on this study. So luckily, we have a nice foundation of knowledge here from work that we've done through research and technical assistance here at Georgetown, but as well as work that's been done kind of across the country from our partner organizations and institutions. So here we've got just some of those main buckets of consultation activities that have emerged over time. So certainly we have consultation meetings with providers, observations, whether they be formal or informal, to try to gather some information about the strengths and needs. That co-creation of strategies piece that is so important because we're working collaboratively to try to figure out how we're going to address the issues that have been identified. The implementation piece, really moving from strategies to action. And then the linkages to services that are maybe outside the scope of consultation, really helping to round out services by linking families and providers to the things that they do need. And then also very importantly is sort of that programmatic level of support. So really working on that sustainability piece, supporting with practices and policies and so on at that more systemic level. All right, next slide. So in addition to these buckets of sort of these general themes, thanks to my colleague, Dr. Perry, Dr. Davis, we have this nice conceptualization of sort of the phases of consultation work. And admittedly, we know that these are not necessarily linear. We all know that consultation is inherently very individualized work, but I think that we can agree that there's a general sequencing or flow to consultation, and that's what's captured here. So really kind of moving from initiation, which is that orientation piece, the exploration where we're really trying to identify those concerns and priorities and goals, plan development piece, which again, that collaborative, how we're gonna really work together to make change. The implementation piece, which again is where we're trying to really get new strategies and approaches into place. And then this last piece, which I think is particularly important because it's constantly going back, what's working, what's not, right? So to really make these changes for children and families. But I think that as we looked across everything that we do know, we really felt it was important to consider like what's missing. So some of the key things that were jumping out to us. So are these activities universal, right? So are they across settings? Or are they really more specific just to early care and education? So that was one thing that came to mind. Do these activities really capture the complexity of consultation work, right? So that we know that consultation work is sort of a combination. It's not just the action, it's also the approach. It's the what and the how. So that's another important piece. Is the consultant's work around equity really represented in what we know about consultation activities? And then finally, do these activities really capture that relationship building component that we know is so essential to high quality consultation? So next slide. So I think as you can probably guess, we as a team decided we're not quite there yet. And so that kind of brought us to where we are here with the study today. And again, our goal here, our purpose was really to just articulate what those essential activities are across settings and to really give a deeper dive into that so we can capture the complexity and really include that relationship and equity piece that we know is so important. Because I think in the end, we all want to be able to say confidently, right? And without any ambiguity, this is what consultants do. And so that's what we're really striving for. Okay, next slide. So that was a very quick overview to kind of give you a sense of kind of how we got here and our hopes and dreams really for this study. But we want to take a quick pause here because we'd really love to hear from you and to get a sense of how you feel that defining these activities might be useful in your work directly or to the field in general. So if you have thoughts on that, we'd love for you to drop them in the chat so that we can talk about them a little bit. Supporting training, absolutely. So we, as you might guess, we've already come up with our list, but we wanted to see how much overlap and maybe how many new things might come up as well. Absolutely training, right? Aligning with other systems for support. Yeah. I mean, and I think going back to the first comment about the training, I think that that's also very important because again, if you know what consultants must be prepared to do, right, then that can be infused into training curricula, into program manuals, so that we're really making sure that everybody's on the same page. Professionalizing and aligning the work. Yeah, a lot of alignment, right? And I think, again, when we talk about the fact of being able to come up with a set that is universal to all settings, right? Then there's that consistency and quality. If everybody is sort of in lockstep and gives us a unified roadmap, I think really of where we want to go. Advocating, avoiding role confusion, absolutely. So that clear communication piece, right? We want to be able to say confidently, this is what consultation is and is not. And also very importantly, this is how it's distinct from other interventions. So I think it's important that we really have that clarified so that we can all kind of be saying the same thing in unison and with confidence. So respect, awesome. Okay, so I think that that is, well, and if you want to show them, we came up with pretty much the same list, so good job. Evaluation was another critical piece, of course, that was there as well, because if we know what we need to measure, then we can see to what extent are these activities actually taking place and what are the implications for outcomes and for continuous quality improvement. So that's great. I know we need to move on, and I'm eager for you all to hear more what my colleagues have to say about the specifics of this study. So I'm going to turn it back over to Annie and to Kayla. Thank you all so much for your comments.
Thank you for that, Frances. I really appreciate the comments that everybody's been putting in the chat. I completely agree. And it does feel like a really pertinent topic for us. So we have invested a great deal of time at the Center of Excellence to beginning to unpack those essential activities of mental health consultation. What distinguishes us from other related services, and how can we empower others to advocate for mental health consultation when it's really hard for others to understand it because it is so different. So this was not, we wanted to approach it by gathering data and synthesizing data. Seemed like the best way to approach this, given the fact that there are so many high quality mental health consultation programs already out there. We essentially wanted to learn from the field rather than tell the field. However, it's such a nuanced topic that a simple, questionnaire with canned response options, things like that, were not going to work. So we came up with a solution to this by using what's called a Delphi method study. So this type of study is a consensus building exercise. So the strength of a Delphi study relies on having an excellent panel of experts in whatever topic you're trying to better understand. And what you're doing is collecting multiple rounds of data that includes a lot of qualitative data from these experts. And so over the course of these rounds of data collection, the goal is at the end, you have expert consensus on a complicated topic. So to walk you through it a little bit more specifically, a traditional Delphi study, which is what we're doing, unfolds in these stages. So first, of course, you design your study, you get your IRB approval, and then you recruit your expert panel. And in a moment, Caleb will tell you a little bit more about our expert panel, but suffice it to say that the COE listserv got us more than enough access to experts in the field. And our experts are all mental health consultants and or supervisors. Then we designed and administered Survey 1, which asked a lot of very open-ended questions and resulted in a wealth of information in long paragraph format. So it was designed to be very broad and inclusive, and to pull from our expert panelists, what do you do in an average day, in an average mental health consultation case, in a not so average mental health consultation? What do you do? And then we're looking for where everybody is agreeing with one another and where there is that sense of shared mission and drive behind mental health consultation. And we want to, and we're planning to, in the next phase after doing this analysis, to then, as we move forward, administer another survey where we give back to the panelists, here's what we think you said, here's where we think the agreement is, and we gauge, how did we do? To what extent does this represent the best consensus among these panelists? They give us feedback one more time on, yeah, that sounds good, this one's kind of off. Then we refine and we give them back survey 3, which ideally at that point is more of a confirmation. Okay, you listened to us, you synthesized the information that we told you, and these are the essential activities of mental health consultation. And of course, what we're aiming for at this juncture of mental health consultation and its evolution is that these essential activities are what we're calling agnostic to setting. They're essential, so it doesn't matter if you're doing consultation in ECE or home visiting or in primary care. These are essential. Other things are wonderful. They can be add-ons, they can be nuances, adaptations, but what are the things where if you're not doing it, it's not consultation? That's what we're trying to get to. All right, Kayla.
Talk a little bit about the expert panel that we selected. We received over 250 applications. So we had a tough time narrowing it down, but we intentionally selected expert consultants that represented a range of settings, cultural backgrounds, dates, and race and ethnicities. So we had 20 white consultants, 5 multiracial or biracial, 3 African-American or Black, 1 Asian, and 1 Latinx. We had 5 of those that provided consultation to tribal communities. Of the states represented, some examples are California, Alaska, Hawaii, Arkansas, Colorado, Maryland, New York, amongst others. I won't list all of them. And years of experience as a consultant, you can see the range is from 1 year to 31 years. So it's a wide range of people's experiences from different settings, as well as being a consultant or a supervisor. And mean is 12 years. And examples of other settings, if you look at the graph, that's some of the settings that these consultants said they have worked in. Others are recovery homes, substance abuse treatment. So the consultants had a wide range of expertise in different settings.
Thank you, Kayla. I'm sure this is my time. Okay, so hi, good morning. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. So the preliminary activities that we've come up with since we've been working through this study that we can see that apply across setting are these 6 listed here. And this is not an exhaustive list. This is just an example. And so similar to some of the points Francis made earlier, consultants facilitate the progression of consultation, build and nurture strong, equitable consultative relationships that foster readiness for commitment to consultation, sort of optimize the consultee's capacity to support consultation through new ways of thinking and acting, empowering consultees to enhance equity in their roles, attend to consultant professional skills, self-awareness, and self-care, and then also individualize the consultation based on the focus of the consultation. So the with whom and on behalf of whom. So these are some of the preliminary activities we've pulled out so far. And then the next slide are some of the equity activities that we've been able to see in the data. So facilitate perspective taking, normalizing and validating emotions, incorporate in family spiritual beliefs and practices into the consultation plan with the consultee, and then sort of providing tools and resources that are explicit and multiculturally and culturally relevant. And so I just read a couple of those there on the list. But those are some things that we were finding out. And next, what we're going to do is give you guys an opportunity to engage and interact with some of these activities. And so you can go to the next slide, Annie, thank you. And so we have a vignette that we're going to go through together. We're going to go in breakout groups. I'll read the vignette. It's about Reese. He's a 3-year-old Black boy that's at risk for expulsion from his center. His teacher is pretty overwhelmed by his tantrums, and they typically occur around transitions and late in the afternoon. His teacher, Miss Kelly, tells the mental health consultant that Reese's primary caregiver, his grandmother, is not willing to work with her to address his behavior. So the consultant and the consultee are both white women. The consultant has 10 years of experience and the teacher is relatively new in her role, and she's glad to have the consultant's support because she doesn't want to ask the center director for help. So with this vignette, we're going to go into some breakout groups and we're going to use Jamboards to interact. And I'm going to turn it over to Annie to give us a little bit more instructions on the Jamboard.
Wonderful. Thank you, Evandra. I appreciate it. So what I'm going to do first is just show you what the Jamboard looks like. And for some of you, this may be very well established, and for some of you, it may be the first time that you're using it. So what I want to clarify is that in these breakout rooms, we're hoping that you can have a discussion. That's primarily what this is about. What are you going to do as this mental health consultant in this case? Nevertheless, we want a place to organize the thoughts and allow for sharing out. So what I'm going to show you is just what the Jamboard will look like. And I want folks to not feel worried about how Jamboard works, because the moderator of your group is going to be the one who is going to be putting things in the Jamboard. So Jamboard looks like, let's see if I share the right thing. Okay, so Jamboard looks like this, and it has, as you can see at the top, a number of slides to it. So the first slide is just a repetition of the vignette, and then each of the subsequent slides has a prompt for you to discuss together. This first one asks you to unpack the vignette. What are the main issues to be addressed, and what additional information or perspectives do you need? So that would be something to talk about with your group, and the moderator will be the one to put notes on here representing what your group says and decides upon. Next, with whom should the consultant work? How can the consultant build relationships with them? As we know, relationship building is the work of consultation. Next, how could the consultant explore bias and cultural differences with consultees and encourage self-reflection on these topics? And when we say consultees here, that's really whoever the consultant is talking to in that moment, we can consider the consultee. The teacher, the parent, grandparent, the administrators, all of them. Next, what strategies could the consultant recommend for the consultees? And how might the consultant support successful implementation of these strategies? And finally, what would success look like? What changes at the program level could help sustain progress? So this is too much to get to. No one has to fix everything, do everything here. But if we get into breakout groups and just start having a conversation, these are the questions to be discussing together, and then the moderator will be taking notes. So we're going to share the links to these Jamboards with you so you can follow along, flip back to the vignette if you would like, but the moderator will go ahead and be the one to be writing things down. So you'll get those links once you're in your breakout group from the moderator, and we are going to break out into 4 groups. So I'm going to look to the tech team to help us get divided. So I see a question in the chat. You will be able to review the vignette in the Jamboard that you'll see in your breakout room. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that activity. I hope you all had a similar experience that I had, which was I was just really learning a lot from the folks in my group, and there was a lot of thoughtfulness there. So we have a very limited amount of time to debrief, but I did want to just hopefully have the group leaders represent 1 or 2 nuggets of wisdom from their groups. So maybe just starting with the slide of, what are the issues we're trying to address here? If folks who were the moderators could just call out a few of the answers that they got, that would be really helpful.
I think in our group, we were talking about just needing to understand sort of what was underlying the behavior and sort of what some of the dynamics were in these relationships. So why was the grandmother hesitant to partner here? We needed to get that perspective. And also what were some of the expectations maybe culturally founded around Reese's behavior?
Perfect. Yes.
Our group really wanted to understand more what was going on between the teacher and the grandmother and the teacher and her director, and why she didn't feel safe kind of engaging in that work with those really important folks.
Thank you. I think in our group, in addition to what Deb just said, because I was going to mention that, was that understanding how long the child may have been in the program, how long has the grandmother been the caregiver, what's the race and ethnicity of other children in the program, and sort of understanding these more broader contexts of the classroom, and then working at multiple levels. So working with the director and teacher at the same time. So we discussed that in our group.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And that's what it gets at, I believe, the, with whom should the consultant work, that next one, and just adding in the grandmother to that as well. And just as one other thing that we kind of put in there is as like a little clue, I think one of the things that my group called out was we need to understand about expulsion policies and what protections there are or are not for this child. Okay, and then we are super close to the end, so I'd love to just wrap up with an exploration of the slide that asks, how could the consultant explore bias and cultural differences with consultees and encourage self-reflection on these topics? And I'll get us started with my group, that we're very clear that the consultant's role would be to acknowledge cultural differences right at the get-go, with themselves and their consultees, to put it on the table and be direct so that it creates that space. And I'm wondering what other groups wanted to add to that.
Well, I would just say that something similar came up in our group, Annie, and an experienced consultant really talked about the fact that she kind of models the way. So she will kind of lead with some direct observations of her own biases, sort of creating a safe space for others, particularly who are culturally matched with her, to feel like they could have those conversations as well. And I thought that was a really nice way of explicating how one strategy.
Anything from the other groups? I'll just add, we had a presenter in our group asking themselves, what assumptions am I making here? And then that being a question that can also be translated to asking the consultee gently and in an appropriate way, what assumptions am I making here? And then moving further, when I experience this and when I make that assumption, what is my emotion? What do I feel? What is my body telling me? And what can I learn from that, both as oneself and then just to guide the consultee in that form of self-reflection as well.
Hello. I think one of the other things that was really interesting that came out of our group, thinking about different, is
Took a while, but
our group was talking a little bit about just sort of also wanting to understand how systemic the issue was. Like, so was the teacher getting pressure from different levels, right, to expel this little boy? Or was it something that she was sort of leading the charge? I mean, how systemic was this expulsion issue? So that was something else that our group talked about.
Thank you. That's excellent. There's so much more that we could unpack, but we do have a hard stop. Yep. So I would just want to wrap up by saying thank you all so much for sharing your time and your thoughtfulness with us. And we look forward to sharing with you the results of our Delphi study on the essential activities. So be on the lookout and be on our listserv. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everyone.